Okay, well, I was, yeah, what's that?
I want to know what you thought.
Well, my thoughts, okay, I'll editorialize a few of the things. Yeah, I had the vision, or the benefit of being there and witnessing it in person. Yeah, this was my 23rd family reunion, and the vision speech is almost always the highlight, of the event, because you get to hear, what's going on, and you get Gary's take on everything. And Gary's a pretty sharp guy. He knows this business inside and out. So this is kind of broken up into sections. We'll talk about the economy first, and then at the end we're going to go through the NAR survey, and that's got a lot of stuff in it that I think will really be helpful and useful to you that we'll want to talk about. So first we're going to talk about the numbers that drive real estate. And one thing I want to share with you, you've got a copy of this. You should have an email with this. There's probably about 3 to 5 of these slides that you should have printed out. I'd even, depending upon how many people you meet with day to day or week to week, I'd even go so far as to have them laminated, okay? Because they contain information that is very useful in answering questions from a client and or handling objections from a client, okay? My experience has been, those of you that don't know, I've been in the business for 35 years, okay? And my experience has been that the average person does not really follow the real estate market. We think they do because that's the business we're in, and that's what we do. We follow the market. We know what's going on. We're in it. We experience it. The average person doesn't follow it. What they may know is a headline, on a newscast, yeah. Okay? And they may pick up half of it. They may hear the first part and not hear the second part. The first part's always the sensationalism, to grab you in, but the content usually comes later. And see, the same thing if you read a news story. The initial headline makes it sound like it's all doom and gloom. The world's coming to an end. But then when you get 3/4 into it, then you really read what really was going on, the content of it. And most people don't take the time to even get there. My point is, when it comes to the market, when it comes to the economy, the average person is not on top of it. And they will form opinions of the market or as to what they want to do based on their understanding. And there's several of these slides that can be very helpful in showing them what's going on now and what has happened historically in the past. Does that make sense? So this is one of them right here, home sales. I mean, what's the proverbial question we always talk about people asking you? You're in real estate. How's the market? There's how the market is, okay? Not doing that great. Would you agree? Look at the numbers of sales. We're at where we were at the end of the Great Recession. Now, what's that tell you about expectations for the future?
Go up.
Yeah, you can make a strong point, at least, and I don't want to get political here, but maybe before January 20th I could have made this point, and that is right here is the beginning of right here. Does that make sense? And generally speaking, I think that's a fair assessment, at least based on where things are right now. But let's give it another 3 to 6 months. and let's see what shakes out. Because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. A lot of stuff, and we'll talk about more of that later. And the other thing is, I don't want this to be all about me talking to you for 2 hours. I mean, those of you know that I could talk for 2 hours. I don't have a problem with that. But this is supposed to be a mastermind.
And more than 2 hours.
11 to 1.
No, you can.
Oh, yeah. You know me too well. This is meant to be a mastermind. So don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask a question. If you have a comment or an aha or something you want to share with everybody, please do. This is meant to be a mastermind. Typically, when we have masterminds in Keller Williams, you walk into a room and it's full of 8 or 10 top tables, and everybody sits at tables, and then when we mastermind, everybody at each table talks about the subject, has a leader, comes up with their topics, and then it gets shared with the whole group, okay? We're just one big table right now.
I think there are 2 points that I want to make. People sometimes, when they look at home sales and look at the numbers, they can have uninformed information. They might say, well, if the home sales are low, then it means that homes are sitting on the market. They are not. But I think between 2008 and this time, I wonder if the same number, 4.1, at that time, the inventory number at that time, that was just sitting on the market, it was a buyer's market, maybe. And this time when there's actually a low inventory. So it's interesting to see what's behind those numbers.
Yeah, okay. I lived through that whole thing, okay? And so, how big do you think the inventory was when we were up here?
Bigger.
And what did it consist of?
Foreclosures,
Foreclosures and short sales. See, the market, here's where, this is where the market peaked right here, okay? 05. This is where it peaked. And then all the loans started going bad and all the foreclosures started. And then, and you're right, the inventories did swell. Go back to his active pending graphs. If you follow those at all, right in here, we had about 1,300 houses for sale in the Tri-City area, right? Go back to his graph, and because the reason I had him, he was going back about 4 years, 5 years. I said, Alan, take it back to 2004. I want people to see it all the way back to here. Okay, and that's what that active pending graph, the long one shows, the long time frame shows. How many people know what I'm talking about? Okay, you're getting it in the email. It just went out the other day.
Yeah, monthly.
Look at his active pending graph, because what it shows right here, it shows the inventory spiked up here to 1,300 homes. Exactly what Anda said. The inventory was huge. And then we started absorbing, with 6.5 million saves, we started absorbing it, okay? But what happened here was we were in a deep recession. We had people unemployed. I mean, homes got down to, single-family homes in Fremont got down to $300,000. I had an REO on Towers Way, the flat tops, lowest price single-family home. I had an REO for $200,000. I couldn't buy it because I was the listing agent. I would have bought it in a heartbeat for $200,000. Just so you understand, the lenders wouldn't let us buy our own listings. We couldn't buy them. You didn't know that? No. No. As listing agents, we could not buy the REO properties that we listed. They would not let us do it. Nor would they let us buy the short sales. nor could your family members be involved in the short sales. In any event, so yeah, you bring up a good point. Go back to the active pending graph. Yeah, in fact, it would be, if you got the time and technology, superimpose that. Now again, this is national, active pending is local, but it still would be relevant if you superimpose his graph on top of that to see, and you'd see, at least from a Fremont perspective. Just so you understand, this is national, this is millions of homes sold. Everyone understand? Some of you, I've talked about buying leads, you know, and I quote that in the year 2021, we sold 6.1 million houses in the United States. So how many sides is that? 12.2, okay. You know how many leads the lead aggregators sold in 2021? 120 million leads were sold. What's that tell you about the value of a lead that you buy? 0. 120 million leads were sold, and we only had 12 million sides. So think twice before someone calls you up and says, hey, I want to sell you leads. How good are they?
Now there's a lot of lead companies. There are a lot of lead companies.
Oh yeah, they're coming out of the woodwork.
All the time, yeah. Facebook.
It's not easy, it's not hard to find a lead per se, but what's the quality of the lead? That's what's important. At this rate, we'll be here for 5 hours. No. So anyway, looking here, NAR is projecting 2025, we're going to see an increase in sales of 2.5%. So it's not going to be significantly different. You got California there, or you got, that's from CAR, yeah, you get the local statistics,
every
yeah.
month you get the link to go to a local, whatever city you want, you can print it. Look at this. Existing home sales, minus 48% in Fremont.
Yeah, well, I just did my fourth quarter market report. Fremont ended the year with 13 houses. When I say houses, I'm talking detached homes. 13 houses for sale. Quarter over quarter, it was a drop of 680%. Wow. Yeah. Good. No inventory. Basically, what I want you to glean from this is 2025 is not going to be significantly different than the last 2 years. And another statistic, folks, I'm not proud to share this, 71% of all the realtors in the United States did 0 last year. 71% did not sell a house. Because you're going to see a stat here that talks about sides per agent. That doesn't mean everybody sold or represented a buyer or seller. Okay, moving on a monthly basis. This is kind of interesting because 2023 is in purple, 2024 is in blue. For the leading part of the year, 2023 was actually a little better than 2024, but we got better towards the second half of the year. Another thing that's kind of interesting is this seasonal income cycle. And just gives you, and that's pretty indicative of the market. The market generally you start out low, and then we peak as we get through the second quarter into the third quarter, and then it drops back down. That's a normal cycle. For most of you, if you sell 5 to 10 houses, I'll venture to say that your closings will probably mimic that fairly closely. And interesting too, that graph kind of mimics his active pending graphs as well. And I always share with people that basically the second and third quarters are our strongest time. And in fact, even around here, it's even first half of the first quarter is strong. I generally tell people if your goal is to sell a property if time's on your side, you know, be ready by February or March, because that's when it's gonna really get hot. I just sold a property in Mission San Jose on Friday, closed on Friday, call it 2.7 list, multiple offers, sold in 8 days for $400,000 over the list price. 400 over. And another agent, one of our former team leaders, he sold a house smaller than mine for $525,000 over list. Closed the day after me. Okay, and you'll say, okay, this is the other one you want to copy and laminate. Basically, nationally, we have a trend line, a 4% trend line, dating back all the way to 1990. The average annual increase in price is 4% annually. Now, that's a good number when you're when you're in dialogue with your stock market investors. You know, that's a good number to compare to. Because those are the numbers. Now, we got above the trend line when the market got hot. We got way up above the trend line, 21% over. But then what happened? The Great Recession, foreclosures, short sales, dropped back down. Took us over 10 years to get back on the trend line. You know, we talk about the real estate as, you know, it's a cyclical. Things go up, things go down. But look at what happened after 10 years. Look what happened to price. Above the trend line.
Steve, quick question.
What's that?
Basically, like in 2006, I was saying it went up 21%.
Yeah, the market was hot. We had multiple offers. We were selling properties just like unbelievable prices. Just like right now, it was the same thing.
2024, 25 is 10%
Mm-hmm.
from the previous year.
Above the trend line.
Above the trend line.
That's above the 4% trend.
Above the 4%.
Yeah. The trend line. The trend line is 4%.
Okay.
We were 9.9% above the trend line price-wise. Okay.
I love to buy my first home in 2006, seeing this.
Exactly. Exactly.
I bought my first home in 2006.
There you go.
Oh, it's pretty-
Yeah, but what did the quote I shared with you the other day? Don't wait for the right time to buy real estate. Buy real estate and give it time. What Gary said in family reunion last year, so last year, it was 2024, and he goes, look at all the opportunity that people passed up over the last 3 years in not buying property. They got people that were sitting there waiting in 2019, 2020. Imagine how well they would have done had they bought, instead of waiting for something to happen. Real estate, unless you're a fixer and a flipper, it's a long-term hold. You're not buying it to sell it in 6 months. You're not buying it to sell it in a year. I bought and sold 3 houses in 3 years because I was riding the market up, but it didn't work the 4th time. With the third, it didn't work with the 3rd house because the market went the other way. So I ended up holding that house for 8 years. I'm still in the same house I've been in since 1996. Do you think I care what I paid for it in 1996?
No.
It's irrelevant. I don't care whether I got a deal or not. I didn't get a deal, but who cares? When you look at how high prices have gone up. Yeah.
If real estate is cyclical and goes up and down, and people would like to use this objective when they say, well, I'm waiting because you see, we are about to fall down. How would you answer that?
Okay, good question. Just what I said before. You buy and you give it time. You don't worry about it coming down because you're not selling. See, the problem is when you get people that are in the stock market, they're always worried about where it's going and when to sell and when to buy, because that's what you do. Because real estate, I mean, stocks give you the ability to do that quickly. You don't do that in real estate because there's a cost of selling real estate, a 5 to 6% cost of selling it. So you don't buy and sell every 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, because you've got to at least realize, if it makes sense, you've got to at least offset that cost of sale before you sell, assuming you're voluntarily selling. Here's how Gary explains it. Okay, tell me when the market is going down. You waited too long to tell me. Okay? Tell me when it's going back up. You waited too long to tell me when it's going up. He said, these 10% are the unlucky people. These 10% are the lucky people. Everyone else is this 80% going up or down. That's how you explain it. You can never time the market because by the time you know for sure it's going down, it's too late. It's already gone down. Or by the time you realize it's going up, it's already gone. These are the lucky people. They didn't have anything to tell them for sure that's what's going to happen. Who foresaw COVID? Okay? Does that make sense? I remember when he showed that, he showed that in Family Reunion, or I don't remember what, years ago, and I never forgot that. Because that says it all right there. Some people are lucky, some people are unlucky, but most of us are riding that wave either up or down. What did I do with my, okay. Anything else you want to talk about here? Again, we're not seeing a huge increase. What is that? Somebody do the math. What's 418? That's an increase from 408 to 418.
From 418.
408, an increase of
0.4.
how much?
0.4, right? Because it's 10 out of 400.
Okay. So not a huge increase. 4%?
From 408 to 418, that's 2.5.
2.5%. Yeah. So yeah. So he's yeah. See, that's the same thing there. 2.5. The 4.1 to 4.2 is 2.5%. So they're projecting the same thing on price, 2.5%. So basically, we're looking at 2.5% increase in number of sales, 2.5% increase in price. That's national. Statewide is predicting 5%. Fremont's been on Tri-City's been on a downward trend. This year, it's who knows what we're going to see price-wise. It's anybody's guess. I mean, right now it's hot. I mean, the house I just sold was 114.86% of list. Call it 15% over list. City averages Fremont averages running about 8% over list right now. In the core area where I sold that home since January 1, the 9 homes that have sold, 110%. 10% over list. All right, moving on. This is a kind of a cool graph because it basically shows you the different periods of time and the different amounts of appreciation that we realized. And the one thing that always, I always look at is, was it a natural occurrence or was it an unnatural occurrence? Was the Great Recession a natural event or was it an unnatural event? It was an unnatural event because it was a result of fraudulent loans that were made. Okay? So that's your 06 to 11. We saw a huge, see, and that's the other thing you need to explain to people is, yes, it's cyclical, but what causes that graph, what caused it to be cyclical are two significant unnatural events. The mortgage meltdown and COVID. There was explanations for what happened. You take those off the table, and you've got more of a normal, natural economic cycle. Now you still have, inflation, and we still have inflations and recessions. And if you look at it historically, it's apolitical. Generally speaking, folks, what happens in Washington is candidates for president need votes. What do they need to say to get votes? Reduce taxes.
Yeah.
They need to reduce taxes. And that almost always ends up causing inflation, which always ends up causing a recession. You go back historically, you see every president going back, they all dealt with inflationary times because of cutting taxes. Okay. In any event, this just gives you an idea of what can happen depending upon what's going on. This was a pretty normal time right here. There wasn't anything really unusual going on. Okay. This was the huge run up here. Now the other thing too you need to understand is that in 1995, Clinton was president, and Clinton proposed a home ownership act. He wanted to increase home ownership by 8 million people over 5 years. And by the end of his presidency, that's when the lenders started relaxing financing. And that's what led to the fraudulent loans. That's where that's when we started seeing the no document loan. It was also known as the liar's loan. Stated income. Whatever you wrote down on the application, that's what they relied on. They didn't verify anything. I could go on and on that whole subject. But basically that's what was going on. So part of the beginning of that Great Recession mortgage meltdown was a push to increase home ownership. And the only way they could do it was to relax the lending standards. And that's what basically got us into, that's what created, the fraudulent loans created this. And then this was a result of the fraudulent loans. One wonders, had they not changed the lending standards, we wouldn't have realized all these ups and downs and whatnot that we did. Yeah.
I am concerned, and maybe I hope I don't have real reason to be concerned. There are so many plans and lending opportunities right now. You hear like RSU. It feels like it's coming back.
Okay, well, yeah, it does. No, it does. I'm glad you said that. It does come back. Think about it. You're a lender. Your business is lending money. And when it starts to slow, you're not making money. So you say to yourself, what can I do to create more loans? What you do is you start coming up with all these programs and these different ways to qualify people. And that's exactly what's going on. Now, well, for the time being, the CFPB, I don't know what the CFPB is going to.
May not exist.
Yeah, well, I think theoretically it doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
I mean, the other day I thought, how long are they going to continue with these closing disclosures? If the CFPB's gone, do we even really need to worry about it anymore? I haven't read anything about that yet, but that's kind of an interesting thing to follow. But my point is, yeah, they've got to get creative, but they still have guidelines within the CFPB to keep them honest, so to speak. But yeah, but the lenders have gotten creative. RSU basically, they're letting them use stock. People are using stock. That's been going on for years.
I know, there
Yeah,
there's
it's
so
been, you know,
many,
yeah. With the
options.
growth in Silicon Valley, buyers have been relying on, the scary part of stock financing was the margin loans. That's the first part, that's what started first, was margin loans, borrowing against the stock. And then what happens is, you had, see, in the 90s, that's what a lot of people were doing, they were doing margin loans against their stock. Well, those margin loans had criteria said, if the stock value hits here, you gotta sell it, you've got to sell it. And guess what, to buy back, to pay off the loan. Well, the value went down, and they didn't have enough money to pay back what they owed on the stock.
Pretty soon they'll start
Yeah.
using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right?
So, but anyway, that's what was going on there. And you had people that had to were bailing out of big houses left and right, because they had a margin loan to pay off, and they didn't have the money to do it. They had to sell the house to pay off the loan. The one to keep an eye on is asset depletion allowance. And it makes, who's heard of asset depletion allowance? Okay, what an asset depletion allowance loan is, you need to understand this, if you've got people in tech that have a lot of stock, is they don't look at your qualifying ratios. They look at how much cash do you have available to access to make a payment if you need to make a payment. How much money do you have in the bank? How much money do you have in stocks? And then what they do is, and then it varies from lender to lender as to how many years they'll prorate that amount of money over as excess that you can allowed to use to pay off a loan. Some very aggressive lenders will do it, will only go back 5 years. And say, all right, so theoretically you got $1 million sitting there. I got in this argument with a lender one time over a refi. I said, I got all this cash sitting in the bank. You're sitting there staring at my scheduled C's and my profit and loss. Why don't you take into consideration how much cash I have in the bank? You think I'm gonna I'm not gonna look at my credit history. You think I'm not gonna make the payment on this loan? I've got the money sitting right there. And that's what these lenders finally realize, that makes sense. So, say you got $1 million cash, well, if I prorate over 5 years, that's $200,000 a year you have available to make payments. So we don't care about your ratios. We don't care if it's 40%, 50%, 60%. You've got enough cash. That's called asset depletion. Well, you do it over 20 years. I've seen lenders do it over 20 years. So what's a million over 20 years? 50,000 a year. So they go, all right, you make this much, you're making this much payments, your PIT is this. Well, we can take this 50,000 and add it to your income, and then run the ratio. Does that make sense? That's called asset depletion allowance. I double-ended a property at $2.8 million a year and a half ago with my lender using asset depletion. They did not qualify under normal guidelines. Their debt-to-income ratio was too high, but they had a ton of money. I don't know how they did it, because neither one of them had that high a paying job, but they had so much invested, and when they threw in I think it was a 20-year proration. They threw that in, qualified, no problem.
Yeah, the asset depletion thingy basically is that already available to the lenders, or is it something that?
No, it's
we have to recommend?
your cash available to you.
But I understand, but I mean, the lender, does he automatically look at it, or do we have to?
No,
recommend that?
it's a special program. It's not, no, you have to ask your
Lender.
If you can't find one that does, my guy does it. He knows how to do it.
Okay.
You're hearing more and more of it, but yeah, I've seen it popped up on screens with some of the lenders that come in here.
Okay.
Yeah, but you got people with high net worth with stock, asset depletion can get them. See, a lot of your traditional lenders don't know it, they don't have it, the banks don't have it. And there's special lenders that do, because they realize it's a safe loan. All right, this is kind of a nice historical, you know, breakdown of what's happened throughout history, all the way back to the year after I was born.
54.
What's that?
54?
Yeah. So that shows all the different cycles that we went through, where you had inflation, stagflation, same S&L crisis, the housing bubble. See here, I mean, this is it, the housing bubble. Appreciation was up 14.51, and then boom, dropped all the way down to negative 12.75. And then look what the pandemic did. Pandemic drove it up even higher than the housing bubble, 21.35.
Interestingly, it didn't matter what was going on, the home prices were still going up.
Yeah.
Other than,
We still had that 4% trend line. Well, that trend line started in, I think he was about, where was he, 84, or, I think he went back to 84, yeah, but still, yeah, that's probably, you know, if you got people that are into, you know, that like to talk about history, this is a good one to show them. Okay, here's volume. See, volume, again, up and down, up and down. You can see you can see the volume numbers just track what was going on economically. And then this shows agent counts. So we had the last number I saw for agent count was 1 million, this is NAR. It's it was 1,550,000.
I mean, what would be interesting is how many homes per agent.
That's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a slide coming up with that. Okay, now this is annual inventory. Now we say in our business we say a balanced market is 6 months of inventory. The last time we had more than 6 months of inventory was back here at the Great Recession. Look at since then, since 2012, we've been in a seller's market, even statistically, nationally and locally. But it's even more prominent, you know, here locally. Now the drop in inventory is one of the reasons why you saw those spikes. This low inventory is one of the reasons why you saw the spike in price in the previous. Remember when we saw the home price drop? The last 3 or 4 years were really high because of low supply. Remember, basic economics: supply and demand. Low supply, high demand, price goes up. Now this is the other one you want to copy and laminate. Mortgage rates. Now if you go back to 72, year after I graduated high school, average interest rate 7.72. So we're below average. If you want to look at it that way, we're actually below average. Now, if you only go back to 1990, which basically takes out the crate. Now, look at this, folks. I mean, I actually have a rate sheet. I have a copy of a rate sheet from 1981, and yeah, 16.63. At that, the rates that were quoted back then were 16.5%. Now, anybody want to know what the Fannie Mae loan limit was?
500?
No.
Not even 500.
91?
$98,470. It was all relative.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought my first house in 1984 for $90,000 across from the lake. Cadman Road off Leslie and Eugene. I think 30-year fixed was, I think it was around 10. I was single attorney, I couldn't qualify for a 30-year fixed rate loan. I only had 10% down, so I put 10% down, and I did an 80-10-10. 80% first, with an adjustable loan. I think I had a start rate of around 5, and then I had a 10% second. I can't remember, the second was about 8 or 9%, I think. And I had to have 2 roommates on top of that, paying me $250 a month. I'm saying that just because, and I had been an attorney for like 2 years by that point in time. My whole point is, everything's all relative. It's all relative to income. If you look here, I mean, the sweet spot was right here. I think this, there, let's see. Yeah, let me go back. Let me finish this. In any event, you see where we are. We're hovering, above that 6%. We're below the long-term trend. The expectation, I mean, this was done before January 20th, but the expectation is that rates are going to come down at some point. 2 months ago, I mean, the odds on rate cuts now, 2 months ago they were saying one a cut in June. They don't know what after that. Then they were saying possibly 2. I say maybe 3. Now it's maybe none. Yeah. It's kind of all over the board. I would, I think, we spent last year telling people, to date the rate and buy the home. Because the expectation was rates would come down and they could refi out of the high rate loan. Well, has that happened? Not yet. Here was a sweet spot. Anybody refi during this little period of time right here? I joined you too. There was one day here where you could have locked in a 30-year fixed for 2.25. It was only there one day. I remember the day for sure. 2.25. You could have got 30-year fixed. Now this is a national stat. 74% of mortgages in the United States have a rate of 5% or less. So you got 22% with 3% or less, 3 to 4, 34. I heard a California stat, it's been a few months now, a California stat that said 70% of all homeowners in California with a loan have an interest rate of 4% or less. Those are our locked-in sellers. 70% with loans, 4% or less.
Steve, I learned something new today.
Uh-oh.
And I don't know.
Not here.
Not here. And I didn't know that FHA loans can be assumable. Talking about low rates and maybe.
They've always been assumable.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But
the challenge is for us around here is the loan limits are low relative to our home values. So there's not many, there's still, a buyer's still got to have a lot, if their typical buyer's trying to go 20% down, they still have to bring a lot of cash to the table to make up the difference. Plus, that loan has mortgage insurance on it that doesn't go away. Okay, there's an added cost on that loan that doesn't go away. That's the difference between FHA and conventional. Conventional loan with PMI, You can get rid of that PMI when your loan to value drops below 80%. You can't do that with FHA. You're stuck with it. You gotta refi out of it into a different, to a non-insured loan if you wanna get rid of that part of it. And remember, for a while, PMI was deductible. It isn't anymore. They put it in and then they took it out. And that was the other benefit to doing it, was you got a tax deduction on top of it. But they got rid of that about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. But yeah, FHA are assumable, yeah. But again, you gotta have the right set of circumstances. You know, loan amount, price, property. Now, if you got a condo buyer, yeah, that might. But again, see, you gotta put it all together in one package, because you're dealing typically with a first-time buyer that can't qualify, or maybe they can, but remember, the beauty of FHA is 3.5% down. Okay? And the rates are lower than conventional. The rates are attractive. But if you got a buyer that only has 3.5% down, how are they gonna be able to assume a loan when the owner's been there for 15, 20 years, or even 5 years? They got the equity build up. They need to bridge that gap. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to bridge the gap, depending on the overall numbers. Affordability. This line is principal and interest as a percentage of income. When rates were 16.5%, principal and interest was 49% of income. Not very affordable, okay? We're down, you know, we were down when rates were 2.5, it was only 18%. Now, with rates where they are at 7, we're up to 32. You're still under, here's the thing, you're still under the typical debt to income ratio for PITI. Assuming good credit, you can run it anywhere from 38 to 39%. Typically, a lender will typically take you up to just under 40. Now, high credit score, you can get up to 42, 44 with some lenders. Okay? So this is still within the normal qualifying ratio. When I got into business, it was 36. It was a hard stop at 36. They would not go past that no matter what. There was no wiggle room at all. Now I remember back in, I'm trying to think when it was. I just remember one point in time where prices were getting, well, basically I think it was when prices were getting high and affordability was dropping. And it was like in this part here, the affordability was up in here. And it was one of the economists at Berkeley who came out, these guys, Ken Rosen, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but he was always cited by the local media for real estate forecasting and economics. And he did a study and he said, he goes, the bear real estate market can continue to flourish with affordability as low, even if it got down to like, the percentage of the population being able to afford, if you get down to like 14%, and we still, that's a different number than this. This is showing percentage of income. All right. We probably have heard more about Canada in the last 2 months than we have in the last 10 years, but I'll go.
51st state.
Yeah, so basically, it's okay. Totally different market. I mean, we sold 4.1 million, 4.2 million houses, and they sold 490 million. You know, they do in a year what we do in about a month and a half. Look at their prices. Look how healthy they've been. Because they didn't have a mortgage meltdown. Now they had COVID, but they didn't, and that's caused some of those spikes. But they've had a pretty stable real estate market. Inventory, they've had excess inventory for most of the period of time dating back to 1990. So they've got to stay sharp with their scripts and everything, with handling, price reductions and all that sort of thing, because they don't have the kind of market we have. Mortgage rates, they have their financing's different. They don't use a 30-year. They don't have a 30-year fixed. It's a 5-year fixed. Yeah, different. All right, affordability. They're in pretty decent shape. 64%, down to Storage 44. All right, the U.S. economy, gross domestic product. This is the year-over-year change. So we were at 2.5 in 2023, 2.8 in 2024. According to Gary, he said 2.5% is a healthy GDP. 2.5%, a year-over-year change of 2.5% is a healthy change. Anybody want to know what the GDP is? How much it is? Currently $29.7 trillion. That's the value of all goods and services produced in the United States in 1 year. This is it on quarterly basis. Look at see where COVID hit? See those two light blue lines? That was COVID. Smack GDP. Nobody was going to work. I just was reminded the other day, my stager was staging a home, and it reminded me, one of my stagers had to shut down. She never came back after COVID. She had to use all her savings just to live through COVID, because stagers weren't they were not an essential service after we started, being able to sell homes after COVID hit.
What was the big spike? Was it shopping from home, Amazon?
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, that's all the online stuff, yeah. All right, unemployment. We're at 4%. That's look how high it was the year of COVID, 8.1%. 4% is when I took economics in college too long ago. That was about 50 years ago. God, I'm old. 4% is the normal unemployment rate for the United States. We need 4% unemployment because we need 4% of available workforce to replace those people that are retiring and leaving the workforce. An economy can't sustain itself on 0% unemployment. You've got to have people to replace the people that are retiring and leaving. So 4% is a normal curve. So there's nothing to be worried about at 4%. That's normal. But are we looking at normal? All right. Gary says that Doge, now Gary came out and said on stage, he goes, I am apolitical. I'm not taking sides at all on this. He goes, we're just stating our research and stating facts. He says Doge's goal will drive unemployment to 5.7%, currently at 4%. He said that in the state of Texas, 25% of the construction workers are undocumented. And if they're deported, they can't be replaced at the same price that they were being paid. So Texas will only have 75% of its workforce doing construction if that all plays out. This shows unemployment on an annual basis. Again, right now we're fine. Not anything to be worried about right now. I'll give you more statistics in a little bit still. Personal savings rate. People saved a lot of money in COVID. Look at that spike, 11.1%. Because they weren't doing as much. They were spending online, but they weren't going, they weren't going out and buying, they weren't buying cars, they weren't doing stuff. So people, and they didn't know what the future held. So people were more diligent about savings. If you got young kids, you need to teach them at a very young age to be a saver. Explain to them compounding interest. My son was taught how to write a check when he was in, I think, the 4th grade. His teacher actually did an economics thing, even taught him about checking accounts, taught him how to write a check when he went to 4th grade. If you want an easy to read book for your child, it's geared to 11. It's geared to 11 to 18, but I mean, a child 8, 9, 10 probably understand it. Look up scouting. It's not no longer Boy Scouts. Look up the scouting, the Boy Scout merit badge called Personal Management. It's not a huge book, but it's the book the Scouts use to get what's called a Personal Management merit badge, which is all about saving money, budgeting for a big expenditure. The whole part of it says, all right, sit with your parents and plan the purchase of some high-priced item, and then figure out how you're going to budget and save to buy that item. Okay. So yeah, if you're looking for something an easy thing to read that's written for an 11 to 18-year-old, that's an excellent book. Personal management. And for that matter, if you got a boy or even a girl and they want to learn about almost anything there is to do, there's a merit badge for it, and you can find those online for free. They're really good resources. Even for you. And if you want to take up a hobby, there's probably a merit badge on it. It's going to give you everything that you need to know about it from A to Z. It's my big plug for the Scouts, okay? All right, inflation. This is the thing that we've been dealing with since COVID. It got high. The Feds finally got around in 2020, the early 2022. Well, they said they raised rates they raised short-term rates to curb inflation, and unfortunately, in my opinion, they waited too long to start lowering them. They didn't start lowering until spring of 2022. They should have started in the fall of 2021. I think we would have had probably a much better landing than we've had. I mean, they've managed to, up until now, they've managed to succeed in the soft landing as far as trying to avoid a recession. And they did, but it's taken much longer to get it back down to where they want it to be. Economic risks in 2025, unpredictable policy with trade, immigration, regulation, and spending. Natural disasters. Gary said that $1.47 trillion will be lost over the next 25 years from natural disasters and international conflict. Now, what matters to real estate? The price of real estate, the cost of money, and employment. And I know in conversations with some of you over the last few days, the subject of fear of layoff is coming up in buyers' minds and decision making. Now, we've already been through multiple layoffs over the last couple of years. There's been a lot of layoffs, not huge layoffs, but a lot of layoffs, within the tech sector for the last few years. But now because of the federal layoffs, now you got people obviously affected by that, but then you've got people wondering, what's their company going to do? Because you're seeing plant closures and you're seeing a lot of stuff going on.
Three questions.
Yeah.
And how do you answer that question? Like, now, for example, I come back and say, so what if I'm laid off, I'm unable to pay the mortgage? How do you answer that question?
You sell the house if you don't have the resources to do it. If you don't have the resources to continue making the payment, you sell the house. I'm assuming you're not upside down, it's not, you're not a short sale.
It's a first time home buyer, and then it's planning to buy a home.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, you start with the premise here. Anybody I talk to that's considering buying, you know, first of all, the first thing you do before you do anything else is you sit down with a trusted lender and you get them pre-approved for a loan, and you find out, you know, can they qualify for a loan based on their current situation. Secondly is, you've got to discuss the qualifying payments versus comfort zone. There's a lot of times, you know, what'll happen is in the excitement of it, the lender say, oh yeah, you know, we run the numbers and your ratios and, you know, if this PITI, you're good to go. Question is, are they comfortable with that payment? And when I say comfortable, not only making that payment, but how do you feel about your long-term prospects of employment? And then what do you do for employment? How employable are you if you were laid off? How hard or easy would it be to get a new job in your line of work? So you've got a lot of different things going on there. But the bottom line is, what's their comfort zone? Now, the other thing to not forget, and I don't think most loan officers talk about this, and that is, as soon as they either when they're considering buying or once they own the home, they should fill out a new W-4 tax withholding, and then take that W-4 to their HR payroll and say, based on this number, and let's assume that shows more exemptions than what they're currently using, and have them show how much more take-home pay they can get by adjusting their withholding. It's not as significant as it used to be, but it's still, the practice is still a worthwhile practice, because they may very well be able to increase their exemptions, have less money with less taxes withheld, which will help offset that potential payment that's higher than what they're currently paying in rent. Always go, and most lenders, they're worried about liability, they don't want to go there. You know, and when we say, you know, we can't give accounting advice, CPA advice, that's something, you know, a CPA could discuss with them. Okay? And I always stress that with first-time buyers, or even somebody that's, you know, that's making a big jump up. Bottom line is, you know, you can adjust your withholding to possibly increase your take-home pay. Because the natural reaction is, remember, loan qualifying is based on gross income, and they're looking at their take-home pay. We can't afford this. Well, you haven't taken the tax savings into consideration. Adjusting your withholding basically gives you your tax savings in your weekly or monthly checks, rather than waiting to get a big refund at the end of the year. Anybody who brags about getting a refund, that just means they were over withheld, they gave the government too much money and let them use it interest-free until they get around to filing their return. Are you proud of that? Because that's what you did. Now, anybody that owes, sometimes they were over withheld. They claimed too many exemptions to take home more money, therefore they didn't pay enough in taxes, and they owe. The taxation system was set up based on everybody doing an accurate W-4. In theory, if every taxpayer followed the law to a T, they would owe no money at the end of the year, and they'd get no refund, in theory. The other thing is, one more part to that question, It's interesting how questions are loaded, because it sounds like a simple question. The other thing is reserves. How much money do you have in reserve? Now, the lender's usually going to be looking for anywhere to, say, 4 to 6 months of cash reserves to cover payments in the event of a layoff. My suggestion and recommendation to a first-time buyer, 12 months, at least 12 months. But what do you have beyond that? Do you have stock? Do you have IRAs? Do you have 401ks? Do you have other money that you can access in the event of emergency? Do you have life insurance with cash value? You know, so you got to look at all their other assets and see that they have other assets that they can use. Someone who has no other assets and is getting in with, you know, everything they got, getting gifts from parents, and when the deal closes, they got 2 months reserves to satisfy the lender and nothing else.
Scary.
And their job isn't, you know, solid as a rock. I don't know if they should be buying it. Nothing in life is a sure thing other than death and taxes. Okay? But, you know, so sometimes there's a little luck involved from the job perspective. Does that answer your question? There's a lot of different things going on when you're talking to a first-time buyer. All right, trade policy. 5 reasons for tariffs. Revenue, protecting infant industries, protecting established industries, punishing unfair trade practices, national security, and political leverage. Do any of those apply right now?
Maybe some.
Huh?
Maybe call it
Which
the
one?
last one.
What's that?
Number 5.
Number 5, political leverage. Okay. There's 2 types of tariffs: a targeted tariff, scheduled goods which are taxed at a specific rate, it's the most common form, and then blanket tariffs, all goods from a country are taxed at the same rate. What we're seeing more so right now seems to be targeted tariffs. This is kind of interesting. This is a good one to share with people if you get into a political discussion about tariffs and you want to know what it's all about. Country A levies tariffs on imported goods from country B. Imported goods from country B become more expensive than country A. Country B retaliates with tariffs. Sound familiar? Country A's exports become more expensive than country B. Importers, exporters, and consumers in both countries suffer. Overall, trade falls. Economic downturn occurs. And then what comes with that is calls for protectionism. Who knows what protectionism is? Buy goods from your country only. Protectionism means buy U.S. manufactured goods. Gary said that blanket tariffs do not drive prices down. He did share that on this slide. Any questions on that? All makes sense? I thought this was an interesting graph. This is sources of U.S. government revenue. We didn't even have an income tax until the Civil War, when Lincoln enacted an income tax in 1862, the beginning of the Civil War. Just look now. This is all income tax. That's Social Security. That's where our money comes from. That's where the government's revenue comes from. I heard a great line the other day. The U.S. government is an insurance company writing checks backed by a military. What does that mean? 91% of government spending is in entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, health services, VA benefits, and defense spending. 91%. All this hullabaloo about all these expenditures and saving money, they're talking about 9% of government spending. 9%. It's in these, when they throw out all these millions of dollars, it sounds like a lot of money. In the overall scheme of things, folks, it's peanuts. It's pebbles in a pond. But to the average person, it sounds like a lot of money. So that when I heard that, I said, I never thought of it that way. Almost all the money that our government spends is on entitlements and defense as a percentage of our total budget.
What's the breakdown between defense and entitlement?
Defense is 14%.
14. And then-
Actual entitlements are 50%, defense is 14%. In that number, there's one thing in that number, because they do have to write the check, is interest on the debt.
Yeah.
Interest on the debt runs about 14%. And then you've got health services, VA benefits, and all that. Everything else falls in that 9% after that. Wages versus corporate tax rate. We haven't seen a lot of wage growth, have we? Look at that yellow line. Look what we've done. Look what corporate tax rates have done.
Nothing.
Corporations' profits are 5 times that of wages. Why? Because of the drop in corporate tax rates. Canadian economy, their GDP didn't go up as much as ours. Unemployment, they're kind of below their average. Inflation, they saw inflation too. They're about the same as us. Okay, U.S. events, sites per agent. Someone asked about this earlier. I said 1,550,000 agents, 71% didn't do a deal. This is how it equates to sites per agent. Last year, 5.4 sides per agent. I'm not trying to brag. I'll share my number with you. You're probably right there with me. In 2023, my volume was in the top 6,000 agents nationwide. Out of 1,550,000 agents. That should give you some idea of how few, how little of business is being done overall. Basically, 20 million. 20 million put me in the top 6,000 nationwide. Top half of the top 1%. In 2024, you'll be there this year when it comes out. We'll both be in that same number. Because the numbers didn't change. The number of sales didn't change dramatically. The price didn't go up that much different.
Volume is number of units, right?
Pardon?
No.
Volume is dollar volume. Dollar
GCI.
volume, yeah.
GCI, right?
Yeah, not GCI volume, sales volume.
Volume.
20 million sales volume. Yeah.
What about sites?
I don't know what, I didn't see that because I'm not anywhere near that.
Oh,
So
okay.
I just saw my numbers for volume. Volume per agent. Again, that's per agent, 2.93.
Million.
But that's 1,550,000 agents. Oh, the other thing I was going to share was the NAR membership represents about 1/3 of all licensed real estate salespersons and brokers. 1/3. 2/3 of the licensees in the nation are not members of associations in the MLS. They just have a license. They're not active in business.
So the 150 includes that.
The 1,550,000 is realtors, association members.
So the one.
That's 1/3 of the total. The actual number of licensees in the nation is 3 times that number, 4.5 million licenses. For those of you that are into getting consent to receive calls and texts, there's been a pause, and the consumers can still give a blanket consent to one person rather than one-to-one to every single, consenting to every single person. Listings with price drops, again, this is nationwide. I don't think our local number's anywhere near that,
Sure.
because we just have a stronger market.
Fremont is 3.2%.
Yeah, so Fremont in January, percentage of active listings with reduced prices was 3.2%. New listings, decent increase from 4.25 million to 4.88. Distressed sales. I mean, I was talking earlier in the beginning about people not knowing the market. There are people still out there that think there's all kinds of foreclosures. Because they'll hear about, foreclosure, we hear about it in the news. It's like, that's a good one to have available. Let me show you the numbers nationwide. Anything to lose sleep over? You don't need to worry about that, all right? You don't have to worry about that.
Maybe here even less.
When I was back here, I was a broker for 6 market centers with 900 agents, and I had a pager. And my pager went off 24/7. My wife we'd be out there, my wife would throw that thing away. It was just constantly. It's like,
Pagers don't even
I couldn't dare
exist
have it in the
now.
bedroom. It just would go off constantly. I get called all hours of the day and night. Talk about herding cats. Yeah.
But I mean, all these numbers, right, that you're mentioning, are we supposed to look at it in terms of like single family homes, condos, and separately, or like?
I look at it separately. In fact, all my reporting that I do to my clients and consumers is all detached single-family homes. Right now, we have 2 markets, totally 2 markets. Why? Because of interest rates. The condo and townhouse market is in the dumps right now because rates are too high, and the typical first-time buyer can't qualify and afford the payment for a condo or a townhouse with a 7% interest rate and HOAs on top of it. I feel lucky. I sold two condos in Union City in fourth quarter last year, but they were under 500. Like the lowest price in Union City. I just talked to a guy the other day, listed the same unit I had, all fixed up, crickets. They're like 7 people over a weekend. Been on the market like 3 weeks, no offers, nothing.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's because of it's affordability and the high rates in the condo town market. Did you get it? All right, underwater homes, not many, and I doubt there's many in the Bay Area. But I mean, who's refinancing? Who's been refinancing? To go underwater. At least not over the last 2-3 years. Credit conditions. Red shows you when they tighten credit. Now we're in a loosening era. New home starts. See, after the Great Recession, at the beginning of the Great Recession, new housing starts plummeted. See right here? There's the beginning of it plummeted. They picked up a little bit, during COVID and after COVID, and they're just kind of hovering around there. That starts. That starts, folks. That means permit was pulled. A permit was pulled. Okay? Now let's go to the next one. New home sales. Most predictions that I read for the amount of new homes needed are at 1 million and up nationwide. When we talk about a housing shortage, when we say over, and overall, we're talking about new homes and existing homes. Where do you think the cause for that shortage is, other than right now the locked-in seller? It's this big gap here. All these homes that weren't built, that's what created the housing shortage. And that's what created more demand for existing houses, which created higher prices for existing homes. So this worked to our benefit as an industry. Make sense? Challenge for builder regulatory burdens, skyrocketing land costs, volatile material prices, persistent labor shortages. I forgot to share one thing when we were talking about tariffs. Two quick things.
Hey Renee, how are you?
In the event of an economic reset, if we see unemployment due to the tariffs, unemployment will lead to increased inventory, which will result in lower prices for existing homes. Okay, because you don't have as many, with unemployed people, you don't have as many buyers. With unemployment, you lose your demand, generally speaking. The tariffs, and I told about Texas, tariffs plus deportation could lead to a perfect storm, resulting in massive inflation and excessive prices for new homes. That's what triggered me to because of this here. Skyrocketing land costs, volatile material prices. See, the tariffs are affecting this, and land costs are going up. A builder, in today's day and age, a builder pays 25% of the sales price for land. So whatever you see, whatever price you see a home being sold for, in normal market conditions, the value, the cost of the land was 25% of that. Brand new house, $2 million, the land's $500,000.
So if it's more, then it's not profitable for the builder.
Now, well, then the market down, and typically that 25% land cost should equate to a 25% profit. 25% profit though, based on cost of building, not based on the sales price. Okay. Student loan debt. Anybody here got a student with college graduate with student debt? Well, good. I had student loans when I graduated law school, but they were only like $16,000, I think, for 4 years. And I faithfully paid it off over a 20-year period. I remember it was seven, in 1982, they said I had 4 different loans, and said you could consolidate them into one loan and at an interest rate of 7%. And I was telling everybody, I said, man, this is great money. You got to go for this. So that's what I had. I had a 20-year loan at 7% interest, and I just religiously paid it off over the 20 years. This is a real problem for young people. I mean, the average, who knows what the average age is for a first-time buyer today? 30-something, yeah, that's a correct answer.
35.
What's that?
35.
38.
Oh, really?
Average first-time buyer is 38. I was, what was I? I was 31. But I spent 11 years in college and law school. Although I had a normal full-time job during 5 years of college. I could have bought a house when had I not got accepted to law school, I would have bought a house at 25 years old. For, yes, how much?
30,000.
No, a little more. I'm old, but not that old.
50,000?
65,000. The house directly behind my parents, I could have bought it for who knows who Amos Picker is? You ever heard his name? He's still out there, you know. Amos Picker was the listing agent. I remember Amos being in my living room with my parents, yeah. 65,000 in 1978. 1978, yeah, I could have bought that house. Yeah.
I'm curious how much of the age time to buy a house is influenced by mindsets in different generations. Like
Well, no, that's a good question. No. When I said earlier, start educating your kids, you know, about savings and whatnot, because they don't have a mindset. The kids these days don't have a mindset about, there's a high percentage don't desire to buy a house. They want the flexibility, they want to be able to move around, and they don't, all they care about is now.
an experience, they spend money on something else.
Yeah. So yeah, you need to, I mean, I share with young people all the time the story of, you know, I get in an Uber headed in Austin, Texas, headed to the airport, and another guy in the front, and he goes, where are you off in the bag? He goes, hi, he goes, Fremont. And I go, yeah. At that time, Facebook was just moved in. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I worked for them for a while. He goes, because I heard a story about a young couple in their 20s. They bought a fourplex FHA, 3.5% down. You can live in one, you can get an FHA, live in one unit, rent the other 3. Because they now own 76 units. Because they would buy one, live in it for a year, save up 3.5%, buy another one, and just keep doing that. Got up to 76 units. Do you think they need to work with rental from 76? I mean, probably doesn't matter where it is. They don't need to work for that kind of rental income. So anyway, I share that with young people, and my son knows that, and he's all ready to do it. The only challenge is in California is that a lot of your multi-unit properties are not always in the best parts of town. That's the challenge, around here. Home insurance. Now we know all about that. Yeah. We went basically. We went from what 06 all the way to 2023 with pretty level numbers. I can remember the days when first time buyer buy a 1,200 square foot house and get it, look at the insurance, be $900 for the year, $75 a month. It's like it was no big deal at all. Now it's hundreds of dollars. One quick thing on insurance. I always forget who I share things with. One of the reasons why you've been seeing so many cancellations by insurance companies over the last year and a half is because they could see the writing on the wall. The California Fair Plan was going to need money because it's being utilized more and more and more, and it's paying out more and more in claims. And California Fair Plan needs to be, I'll say, refunded. The California Fair Plan is made up of a bunch of conglomerate of insurance companies. And when the Fair Plan makes a cash call to the insurance companies, guess what it's based on? It's based on their market share. So these companies see the writing on the wall. They say, we're going to be asked to put in money to the Fair Plan. We're going to start canceling insurance policies to decrease our market share. That's why you're seeing all these cancellations. It's not because of claims being paid out. They know they got to foot the bill for the Fair Plan, and they're trying to save money. Because as soon as they'll cancel policies, decrease their market share, decrease the amount of capital they have to fund to the Fair Plan, and as soon as it's funded, guess what they're going to do? They'll start writing new policies again. Did you read that in the paper at all?
No.
Nope. I even sent that to a reporter, did a big old article. I said, oh, you left one thing out here. You aren't talking to the right people. I heard that direct from a CAR lobbyist who met with insurance people in Sacramento about a month ago. And he came back and shared that with us. He said, this is what's going on. But you don't hear about that in the news. Just one thing you can use around the table when someone starts complaining about insurance companies. To make them look even worse. Non-renewal rates. California, Florida, Louisiana, California with the fires and then the flooding states. Just tell your clients, keep their yards clean, keep the roofs clean. Carriers are doing aerial investigations and canceling based on what they see on Google Earth. They don't like cars in the backyard. They don't like debris on your roof. They don't like piles of debris in the backyard. I had 2 clients both get canceled last year for that. And they don't care if you correct it. They're still not going to renew you. Why? Because they're trying to get rid of policies. It all makes sense now, now that I know what's going on. Generational wealth transfer. Baby boomers currently control $85 trillion in assets, almost 50% of all assets in the U.S. They have $19 trillion in real estate. 73% of people over 55 say they want to give all or some of their estate to their children before they die. On average, they want to give away 30% while they're still alive. This is 2 different examples on generational wealth transfer. It really applies to people who have potential estate and gift tax consequences. Most of us don't, because right now under current law, a married couple, would have to have $28 million in estate value of the estate before they'd be subject to estate tax. Now, that's expected to fall to $5 million per person after this year, which would make it $10 million per couple if Congress doesn't extend it. Now, what do you think the likelihood is that Congress will extend that exclusion?
Yes. Definitely.
Very high, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not hearing a lot about it right now, but just watch the news. As we get closer to the end of the year, you'll hear talk about extending this. But right now, it's scary for some people because what values are being. There are people that have estates worth over $10 million that would be such. And just so you understand, basically the estate tax rate right now runs between about 50 to 55%. It's a huge tax. All right, luxury. The world's wealthy. Total wealth in North America in the trillions, 27.5 trillion. The North American population, millions, high net worth individuals, there's 7.9 million. I heard a statistic that, and I haven't verified this, but the statistic I heard, the top 2% of the U.S. population have a net worth of $2.5 million or more. That's scary. Only 2% of the population has a net worth of $2.5 million or more. I haven't verified that, but that's what I heard on a radio show. Allocation of investments, somewhat consistent, but you've got real estate at 19%, cash at 25%, kind of dropped down. Fixed income 20, stock market 21. That's kind of come down. Alternate investments are like gold, art, crypto, that kind of stuff is in that alternate category.
So what do you mean by saying it's scary? Basically, like 2%. 2% is too less, right? When 2.5 million is too less, right? Too less, right? 2.5 million dollars for the top 2%.
Yeah.
It's too less, is what you're saying in terms of being scary.
I think it's too few people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to understand, if you carve out California, Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, and Florida, take out those 5 states, then it's probably a realistic number. Yeah, probably realistic. But I mean, I'm always hearing all these stories about, can you retire with 500,000 in the bank? Can you retire with, can you retire with $1 million in the bank? Well, then you hear it, it's like, God, right? You have to make sure you got $1 million in the bank to retire, easily retire. And I'm thinking, well, and how many people have $1 million in the bank? And I'm thinking, doesn't sound like there's that many. I mean, it sounds like we've got a lot of people that may be in for some rough times, particularly since we're living longer. $11,500 people turn 65 every day. Baby boomers. 11,500 a day. Our population, you're going to see more and more of us old people. It's going to get worse and worse. Luxury days on market. Now, this is kind of interesting stat. Luxury sits on the market a lot longer, generally speaking. Price drops. A lot of price drops. You don't get paid right away when you take a high-end luxury list, but when you do get paid, you make a lot of money. Commercial. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to get to the NAR stuff. You can read all this on your own. Multifamily unit starts they were kind of up there, but they kind of dropped down, and they may stay down if material costs jump up like we think they are. Loan delinquency rates in commercial. This is a big issue. You got some commercial property owners that are just walking away from properties. The bank here, you can have it. We don't want it. Hotels in San Francisco just walk away from it. There was a hotel in Oakland that was on the it was on tax assessor roll at $40 million, sold for $10 million. In Oakland, out by the airport. Industry. This is news. CoStar bought Matterport. Zillow partnered with First Street. Realtor sues CoStar. Redfin signs a $100 million deal with Zillow. Make the shoes brighter. Multifamily rental listings on Redfin. And tech leveraging AI. And
Rocket Mortgage.
Rocket Mortgage just bought Redfin. And Keller Williams just partnered with, what's it called? Stone Capital, yeah. Moving on.
Did he cover anything what they are going to
No,
do?
they said very little. It was just,
Yeah,
we don't
I saw
have
that.
any detail. All right, first-time home buyers. 2024 dropped to 24. This is all interest rate driven right here, folks. I mean, there was we saw a little blip in rates for a little while last year, and I think that's what caused this. But look at the drop overall, first-time buyers, because of interest rates. Primary reason for purchasing a home: desire to own a home, desire for a larger home, 10%, desire to be closer to family, friends, 14%. Here's what I don't like. This goes back to the education piece. I don't like financial security down here at 2%. We're not educating people enough on the now maybe when they're asked the question, they're thinking of that when they say yes to desire to own a home. They want it for the investment in financial security, but when asked that specific question, it was only 2%. I mean, for the average person in the United States, their single biggest asset that makes up their net worth is what?
Home.
Their home. Weeks in home search. Kind of interesting how people took during the Great Recession, people took a lot longer looking for homes. That's mine. It's over there. Sorry about that. Now it's running about 10 weeks. So that's just something to understand. If you're getting frustrated or frustrated, impatient with your buyers, just remember, 10 weeks is normal. 10 weeks is average. First step in the buying process. Looked online for properties for sale, 43%. Contacted a real estate agent, 21%. It's the highest it's ever been since 2007, based on the numbers you're reporting here. Looked online for everything about buying process, 9. Contacted the bank, 7. Talked with a friend or relative, 6. Drove by a house, 5. Open house, 3%. Contacted a home seller directly, 2. Looked up neighbor information, 2. Looked in newspapers, magazines, 2. Contacted builder. Kind of interesting. Online is where they start and typically stay, and then they contact an agent. Information sources they use. Wow. We're their primary source. 86% for information. They use their mobile or tablet. 49% go to open houses, 37% video site, 32% yard sign. Print ads, home books, all drops off. Where did they find the home they purchased? Pretty steady since 2018. 51% on the internet, 29% from an agent. Value of website features. They want detailed property information. They want photos. They want floor plans. Those are the three highest, 96%, 96%, 87%. Details about recently sold properties, 81% says very useful or somewhat useful. Neighborhood info, 79. Real estate agent contact info, 76. Virtual tours, 75%. But the somewhat useful is broadening in some of those categories. Method of home purchase. 88% used an agent or broker. VSBO, nationwide, 7%. We don't see a lot of it around here. But you get in middle America, where they're trying to get every dollar they can out of a house. You see it more. What buyers want from their agent. This is kind of interesting, because you know, when we think about our value proposition and all the things we think we bring to the table and what makes us valuable. Now this is buyers. Look at the results. 49% want help finding the quote, and the key word there is the right home to purchase. And then it drops off from there. They don't see a lot of value in negotiating sale terms, or price negotiation, or paperwork, or prices of comps. Kind of interesting, because those, you know, in most cases, you know, what did I share the other day? The realtor in 2025 doesn't find the home. You do all these other things, is what you're doing. Yeah, your goal in 2025 is what did I didn't commit it to memory. But it's basically your goal is to get them, help them secure the property and help make sure both sides do what they need to do and get it successfully closed. Finding the home's not that high in what we generally do now, because they do rely on the internet. Now I would suspect we might see a change in this over time. Let's see. How buyers found their agent. Referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative, 40%. Used the agent previously to buy or sell homes, 17%. inquired about the specific property viewed on line 7, referred by another real estate agent or broker 7, website 6. Open house was only 5, personal contact by an agent was 4%. The total of the first 5 for buyers represents 77%. How many agents did they interview? 75% interviewed 1. Be careful when you spend a lot of time studying scripts to handle objections with clients who might be interviewing more than 1, because the chances are they're not interviewing more than 1. The numbers right there tell you. This is sellers, this is buyers. We'll see sellers here in a minute. Most important factors for buyers: experience, honest and trustworthy, reputation, friend or family member, knowledge of neighborhood, caring personality or good listener, timely responses 6%, seems accessible 4%, association with company 1%, active in community 1%. Professional designations don't mean anything to them.
Less than 1%.
The only people professional designations mean anything to are the companies that provide the courses to issue the designations, because they're in it to make money. So again, if you're marketing for buyers, you need to remember these things when you're creating your value proposition. You got to talk about experience, honest and trustworthy. What have I said before? In your marketing materials, there's the 2 C's. You got to convey your character and your competence. Character plus competence equals trust. So anything you write up or generate needs to address one or both of those. Home is a financial investment. 80% said yes, it's a good investment. Is real estate a better investment than stocks? 49% thought it was better, 35% about as good. Now, depending on who you talk to, I mean, I've talked to multiple people, financial planners, when you talk about mutual funds, stock market returns, I will invariably hear 5 to 5.5% as a typical expected return on a stock investment. What do we show on the trend line for the nation? Real estate, 4, but it's higher in the state of California. In the state of California, median price is like double the national average. National average about 400. California, I think we're about 800 something now. Fremont's almost at 2 million. So it's as you get more local, for us, price value goes up. Buyer repeat and referral. This means that they would do business with their agent again, or do business with their agent again, or refer them. 88% in 2024 would definitely or probably. Satisfaction, buyer satisfaction, very satisfied, 59%, 33% somewhat on the buyer side. One thing you need to do with buyers definitely is, after close of escrow, you put down a touch campaign. You call them, you're obviously going to talk to them the day escrow closes. I would call them the next day and once a week for the next 4 weeks. And then I call them in 3 months, in 6 months, and 9 months, and their anniversary. Maybe you could skip the 9 months, but you just want to follow, make sure, is everything okay? Because they're gonna find little stuff, and they may complain to you, they may not. You want to know you care. You're just not another deal. How about buyers? Because remember, you've got them into this, you made them take on this big debt. Okay? So you want to touch them. And then touch them on their anniversary every year thereafter. That first year is critical. When it comes to referrals, you ask for referrals at the earliest possible time. As soon as you get an offer accepted. You know anybody else? You know, congratulations, we got you in contract. Do you know anybody else who may need my services? Keep asking. Don't wait for the event to finish and close before you ask for the referral. Okay, how sellers found their agent. Referred buyer as a friend, neighbor, or relative, 38%. Used agent previously to buy or sell, 28%. Website, 4%. Personal contact by agent, 4%. Referred by another agent or broker, 4%. Visit an open house, 3%. Drops off from there. Direct mail, only 2%. But direct mail over time will get you results. And your direct mail is solidifying the fact that you used them before, so they don't forget you. Now the top four there, if my math was right, for sellers, see. No, the top 3 for sellers, so the top 5 for buyers was 7%, the top 3 for sellers is 70%. Now, that clock's about 4 minutes fast, just so you know. I may get done on time. Some of you've heard me talk about how big is the pie. Okay, oh, that's cool eraser. That's the pie. So 77% of buyers are referred or used the agent before or found the property online. 77%. That means if you're going for buyers, that's your piece of the pie right there. It's not the whole thing. Does that make sense? You only have the potential to go after a slice of the pie, not the whole thing, based on those numbers. That's for buyers. For sellers, it's just a little bigger. You know, it's 70%. I just want to share that with you because the pie that you're going after is a finite number. Does that make sense? And the other piece that I shared a couple weeks ago is $95% of that slice may not even want to do business. So you've got to focus on, when you're new, focus on people you know, not on strangers. Look at where they're finding. Look at where they're finding their. Look at where sellers are finding their agent. Referral, use them before. How do you get the referral? You get the referral by communicating with everybody you know. Oh, you're selling your home? Oh, man, you gotta call Steve. Man, he's the one. He's the man. Think that happens? Of course it does. Quite regularly. Seller interviews. 81% only interview one agent. I'm trying to think the last time I had to compete with another agent.
It's a big problem to have.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to think. This year so far, no. Last year, no. Year before, no, I don't think, I can't remember. I have to go back, I can't remember the last time. It's almost embarrassing to say. I don't even have to do a formal presentation. All I do is a market analysis. And then 9 times out of 10, all I do is email it to them. Then it's go, all right, where do we sign? Oh, I'll send that to you next.
This is because most of it is referrals and.
Yeah, it's with people I know. People who know me. And even, bless you, even the referrals. You know, because if depending on the referral source, that'll seal the deal quite often there too. They won't even question, because if the referral came from a trusted friend, neighbor, or relative, well, if it's good, if he or she's good enough for you, then good enough for me. I don't need to spend time looking for other people. This is kind of interesting. What sellers want from their agent. Help seller market home to potential buyers. Okay, yeah, that's what we do. Help price the home competitively, 20%. Yeah, that's what we do. Help sell the home to a specific time frame. Yeah, we do that. Help find a buyer for home. Yeah, we do that. Find ways to fix up the home, sell for more, 13%. Then it kind of drops off there. Negotiations, yeah, negotiations don't seem to be a big deal with people. They don't. You know, and I always felt that that's one of my strong suits. That's one of my values that I bring to the table, is negotiating strengths, getting the seller the best deal. I mean, I'd like to say that, you know, my strategies and suggestions in the offer negotiating process with this last sale that I closed is what resulted in my seller getting 400,000 more. 400,000 more, and guess what? The buyer paid their broker, the buyer's broker commission. My seller did not pay the buyer's broker. So do that math. Another 75 grand
Yeah.
that I saved my seller. Okay? Repeat and referral, 87%. That's been the same for the last 2 years. But you gotta stay in touch with them for them to repeat. One thing that I've never done, I know it's almost 1 o'clock, 12:59. One thing I haven't done is, you know, they talk about orphan buyers.
Yeah.
Where you're the listing agent, buyer's agent brings the offer and they sell. Buyer never hears from their agent again. I've had those buyers call me to sell their house. Because I made enough impression on them when it came time to sell, they thought of me before they thought of their agent. Method used to sell, 90%. Visible only 6%. Incentives offered, none, 76%. What do you, if you represent a seller, what do you tell buyers and buyers brokers? Seller will entertain all offers, period. You say nothing else. You don't share anything.
Commissions or anything.
You don't say, oh, we'll pay up to 2 after. You don't say a thing. You say, seller will entertain all offers, period, and that's it. End of discussion. Was that helpful?
Yeah.
101, man, I missed it. I admit it. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, that's still good.
All right, if you do have questions, yeah.
Well, can I ask you?
So Mastermind, go ahead.
Oh, okay, so, if your sphere of influence is very minimal, and how do you suggest then someone starts?
Okay, I love that question. The average person knows 286 people. And I would think that you're at least average. Okay, here's what I tell kids. Well, I'll tell you my history. Some of you have heard this before. When I was 23 years old, I was a direct control person manager in a water heater manufacturing plant in Newark. Then I intended to go to law school. An industrial engineer that kind of befriended me, great guy. You know, he knew I was going to go to law school. He said, Steve, now 23, he said, Steve, start saving the names, addresses, and business cards of everybody that you come into contact with or know. And that's what I did. I started at 23, I just started. Now I got buyer companies coming, and I got all these. I'm dealing with all kinds of people. I'm saving business cards, but I also had my high school, the list for my high school graduation. Then I had my college graduation party list. I had my law school. We had 200 people for my law school graduation. Okay. I had my parents' Christmas card list. I paid a woman in the personnel, paid her $100 to give me a list of everybody who worked in that plant during the 7 years that I was there. That was a huge list. And I had a huge, when I started real estate, I was 35. No. Yeah, 35. I was 35 when I started real estate. No, 36. Yeah, I was 36. So I amassed a huge database. But I always tell people, if you had a son or daughter who was going to get married, you had a son or daughter getting married 6 months from now, who would you invite to the wedding? Typically, that list ends up a pretty large list. And you have to take people off because you can't afford to have them all come to the wedding, okay? But what did I also do? I took on my high school reunions. I've done every reunion for my high school class since our 20th reunion. That was over 200 people. We had a class of 435, and I had found over 200 people to add to my database. I'm listing a house in the next month or two from my high school class. A guy that I really wasn't that close to, but he's on my mailing list. Dad's house is in the neighborhood not near where I grew up. You got coworkers, former coworkers, friends, family. You know a lot of people. I will let's say, everybody write down their email address in here. Because you're here, I'm gonna send you something special. I think this is being recorded, so they might hear this, but I've got a list of 100 sources that I'll send you.
Guys, can you write it?
Yeah, everybody write down, I want
You're
everybody
serious?
to, yeah, I'm serious. I wanna make sure I give it to everybody who's here. You know a lot of people. Everybody you do business with. I taught a course one time and I brought everybody to the Yellow Pages, which is a dinosaur, but the Yellow Pages is like a small book. And I said, go from A to Z and pick out every business in that Yellow Pages that you do business with. They need to be in your mailing list. One of my, the best person in the world, ladies, to be in your mailing list, and shame on you if he or she's not on it, is who do you think?
Hairdresser.
Your hairdresser.
Nail.
And then your nails. Do you not think that your hairdresser and your nail person knows everything that's going on with every single customer? I just sold a commercial property with a nail salon and a hair salon. And I made friends with both of them, and I gave them thank you gifts at close because they were so cooperative as tenants to me. I'm already getting referrals from them. They know what's going on with everybody. The guy that used to cut my hair, unfortunately he died unexpectedly, but for the years and years and years, I mean, he was cutting the hair of a lot of realtors in town. But guess who got the referrals? I did. You know a lot of people, you're just not thinking of them as worthy of being in your database. Your doctor, your dentist, all my doctors and my dentist, all my doctors are all my, what do you think when I walk in the room for a visit, what do you think they ask me about? Hey, Steve, I got your thing about, how's real estate? Oh, I'm driving through the canyon and I said, remember my sign on Palmera Road? Yeah, my doctor, I go in and goes, oh yeah, he goes, I see your sign every day. So yeah, I'm not exactly proud of that because I had that listing for almost 2 years, but I got a lot of exposure with that sign. You get my point? You know a lot of people.
Thank you.
You know a lot of people. Anybody you do business, your CPA, lawyer, CPA, doctor, dentist, all the professionals. My CPA, I've done, I sold my CPA's mother-in-law's house last year. $2.8 million. Do you think that CPA does business with more than one real estate agent? Sure he does. He's designated as a trustee of a client's trust. House in Glenmore, who does he call to list the house? He calls me. He's in my mailing list. I mean, I have a good relationship with him too. But you get it? So you hit my sweet spot as far as my passion. You know more people than you realize. Now your goal from a bulk mail perspective, your goal is to get to 200. So you can basically cut your mailing costs almost in half in direct mail. That's your sweet spot is 200. Yeah.
I have a question. I have an off question. How do you deal with people, with the buyers that are currently in the market right now that has their budget, what they're comfortable with the payments? And then yesterday, last night, I was just on the market seeing there was under $1 million in San Jose. I kid you not, there's only condos or maybe just one townhouse. However, the HOA is 12
It's a problem. It's a problem. No, I get it. It's a problem.
And I put my 2 cents into it, so I just tell them, I'm like, HOA is HOA.
Well, what you need, one of the